Hey everyone, Julian here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make selected deep future house the modern style, and also talking about true concept, new aspect, that style as well. To go along this video, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, this entire super awesome high quality template. The best one I've seen on the market for the style and the most in-depth is available at the top of the description on my website for just $5. It's an amazing deal at a really accessible price. You get this extremely high quality template that'll really take your tracks to the next level today. I wish this existed when I first discovered these kinds of tracks, and would have helped me get started a lot quicker. Link is at the top of the description. Thanks for the support, everybody. You can also find the link for my lessons, track finishing, and ghost production down there as well. And let's dive in. Alright, so we're at 126 BPM. First thing we got is a little side chain. Just the kick, shortened, so you side chain everything to that, so you get a nice punchy side chain. And then we have the kick. So what's happening here is it's pretty simple processing. It's just this nice, super punchy kick. I'll show you the original sample. Right, so it's already a really high quality kick, and then I'm just getting a little bit of that tail cut off at the end. There's the drum bus, which is actually pretty heavy, but I'm only using 19% dry wet. We're cutting the sub at 31 hertz, so you're not getting so much like whoop in your mix, and then we're converting it to mono. Then we have the rest of the drums. Now these are pretty simple deep house drums. We got like a main hi-hat, which is 3 layers. Right, we got this, and this. You can see they all fit together to create this huge punchy hi-hat. We have a tambourine. Keeping it simple, you don't really want too much of this kind of like background percussion because it's going to get in the way of all the rhythm that's happening in the melody, right? So just like that. Then we have a clap. And then we have these little snares as well, which I'll play. Right, so it's like really not too much percussion, but just enough to really keep it moving. And it grooves really well off the bass line without getting in the way. And then on that group, there's the drum bus as well. And same deal as with the kick. We're using, it's definitely crunching these up and adding a lot of fatness, but it's only at 18%, so you're not getting that much of a boost. Here's without it. And then with it. It's a little push to just make everything really hit. Then we have the bass line. So, starting with the notes on this one, it's following the chord progression. So what's happening here is we're in the key of A minor, and we're kind of like walking up the scale, right? It starts at A minor, C major, D minor, so root note, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then what happens here is we go down to the 6th. So that almost, when you go from the 5th to the 6th, and like an octave apart like that, you almost get like this major 7th kind of feel. And I think that's a big part of what's making that move there. Dun, dun, dun. Right, and then over here it goes 6th, 7th, and right back down to the root note. So you can see we're really trying to like make that resolve really well at the end. And then it's also the rhythm too. If you listen, you want to start with that kick, and then it's just going to bounce all over the place around that with a lot of 16th notes. And it's also like giving these little moments like over here where you give them, that little pause between notes so that you can have that little like reverb swell. And it's not just like constantly firing notes in your face. So the first layer on this that you always want to start with is the sub. Even though there are these cool bass plugs in this style, I always start with the sub and just get that really solid. So what this is we're using operator, but there's no FM. I have it set to this algorithm where these aren't doing any FM with each other. There's a square wave, a saw wave, and a sine wave, which all come together to make this really fat, like full sound, right? And then we're low passing it, so it becomes really deep. And almost like a sine wave, but with a lot more harmonic content. So that it's really full. This is then being side chained And then we have an EQ cutting at 19 hertz, so cutting a little bit of the sub so that it's not so like in your speakers, right? And when you play it in the car, it's not going to be too messed up. And then we also have this being converted to mono. And then for the main bass layer, so it's these two kind of classic FM deep house types of sounds sort of flipped on their head, and with the layering, that's what really makes it modern. So the first one, and then the second one. Right, and you can see the two very different sounds that fit together. And before I even show you the sounds, that's the first thing with layering, is just like choosing sounds that are different. Like, we're not going to just layer together two of these, because it's going to get messy, right? You want sounds that are different and they'll complement each other and create this one super fat bass, right? So for the first layer, with the operator patch here, we're just doing the regular FM algorithm, and it's actually just sine waves. But what it is it's very strategic use of envelopes and then the pitches of those sine waves. So like with these first two, they're just an octave apart, but you can see the second one has a very punchy envelope, so you get that like pluck out of it. And then we add in this third one with an even shorter punchy envelope that's a few octaves up. So it goes from this to this. See, that just adds that like punch right on the start. And that's really how you get these modern deep house basses. And also why Operator's so good for it, because it just has the envelopes routed like that to where you can just set that up so quickly, right? We've got a pitch envelope, a little bit of saturation. Here's without it. With it, you can see it's being blended though, so it's not that much. We're high passing this, and then we're converting the bass to mono. And then on this one, so this is also sine waves, but what we're doing here is it's actually, you can see a really similar patch, right? Where we've got that last one at 6 and we've got the same envelopes, but we're doing this technique where you put the first oscillator above the second oscillator and you kind of get that like deeper. Like here how it kind of sounds like it has a low octave in it, but it's not quite just like a layered low octave. This is how you get that. It's having that first oscillator up. And if you put it up even higher, you can really play with that and get those future house kind of textures. And then on this one, what we're doing, so we've got a bit of chorus. We've got a little bit of reverb, like really short, which just kind of gives it some room, right? We've got a bit of chorus to make it a bit wider. This overdrive, which is being blended, here's without that. With it, right, just kind of fattens it up and adds some texture. Then we have the reverb swell. So I'm using this on the melodies as well, but this is how you get those kind of crazy selected style, like at the end of the note like that. You can see what it is. It's an automation on the dry wet of the reverb. You have this pretty long reverb, and then you automate the dry wet, like right as that note is hitting, it goes up. And then when you have this little pause here, you can let it just kind of fly. And then as soon as the next note hits, you cut it. And that's the secret. Right? So you get that really cool effect. And I'm doing it over here. And then over there, I have it like going down like that, right? So it's just like really strategic placement of those and getting the right movements and putting it in the right place where it's going to create a groove and fit together with the notes. Then we have a high pass filter. We're converting the bass to mono. And then that is it for that. And then on the group here, we have a little bit of reverb, really short though, to give these both kind of just like a bit more life. If you turn this off, it sounds really flat. This is what really gives it that kind of like texture, right? We're side chaining this. We're cutting all the bass out of it since we have a sub under it that we want to use. And a little bit more bass mono at the end, because sometimes these EQ 8s and the reverb can mess up the phase. Then we have the melody. So this is basically a lot of layering and then kind of like these two different MIDI patterns. So we have this one. And this one. And you can see what's happening is they're playing at the same time, but then there's some parts where the second one will kind of jump up and play a few different notes, And also, the first one is just following the chord progression. Like, if you look at this operator here, it's literally just the chord progression, and then the thirds on top. Like, if you were gonna make these into, like, basic 2-note chords, like, you know, that's literally just, like, the first notes of an A minor chord. First notes, you know, you can see over here, same thing, like, major third on that, minor third on that, just really following the chord shapes. Very basic, but just dyads, meaning chords with 2 notes, and it's going to be the root note and then the third an octave up. And that's how you get that, like, futuristic sort of chord sound. And what we're doing is we've got one layer, which is just that. Like the full chords, it's this operator patch where it's this kind of like FM pluck, but a little bit less hard hitting than the one you would use for a bass. Because when it's playing chords like this, it can get a bit messy if you just use the same bass patch, right? So we've got that. That's got a little bit of hybrid reverb on it. And then we have these 2 bells, which are just playing the top notes. So it's this little bell and this one. Again, just like with the basses, it's sounds that are layered together, but they're not just doing the same thing. It's like ones that when you put it all together, it fills out like that. And then on the group there, we got a bit of drum bus, which is just being blended, so you just have a little bit of it. You see when I turn that off and turn it back on, it's just that extra little fatness boost to really push it. We have the reverb sweeps, again, the same one I showed you. That's another thing is when you're doing this, you want to make sure it's the same one on all of these. That's why I like using Ableton for this, because you can literally just copy the reverb on, and then we're sidechaining this. And then for the second melody layer, so this is the same deal with the layering. It's a bell. So this is like this bell sound. We've got it going through a little OTT where, so that's like that, you know, multiband compression effect where it can really push it. It goes from this to this. Like this super multiband compressed, crazy EDM type of sound. I'm turning the time up though, so it's not so crazy and kind of like compressing it. You just get the textural effect. And then a little bit of reverb and then this operator, which is kind of like a square wave. Like, it really just sounds like a square wave, but it's being created with FM from 2 oscillators, 2 sine waves that are just an octave apart. And then, yeah, just a little bit of reverb on that. And for the notes on this one, it's really just like these melody notes. Like with this one, you really just have to kind of listen to. You create your chord progression, right? You have this first one that I showed. And then it's these melody notes in the same key, like we're in the key of A minor, so it's very simple. If you just follow notes in the A minor scale and kind of just like play around with what's going to sound good over this. Like if you follow the same scales, you'll be able to find a melody like this that's not the same exact one as what's being created by the chords, but it's going to fit really well over that and jump to it on its own in some places, like having that da-na-na while the other one's just playing a steady chord. And that's going to create a lot of movement throughout your mix. And it's one of those things too where like when you hear these tracks, you might think, wow, how are they doing that? How's all that movement happening? What is all the layers? Well, I'm showing it to you here. This is the most in-depth I've ever seen anybody go on this on YouTube. So we've got a bit of drum bus on this, again, just being blended. It's a really great way to make these kind of just push that extra little like 10%. We've got the reverb sweeps, again, the same one, just copied over, and then sidechain. So then we have these 2 little synths. So, these are kind of like the transition synths, you know. I think a big part of these tracks is not just this main groove. Like, if you have this, it's dope, but then you really need those synths that are going to contrast that. Like like that, and like that little low brass. And then over here at the end of every 4 bars, kind of like coming back to it, right? So it's kind of like using these synths to transition it. So it starts with this little operator here. So this is like an ARP. What's happening is it's just an A minor chord. Again, that's the key we're in, so this is very easy to make. Whatever key you're in, just use that chord, right? And what we're doing is, it's an A minor, and then I added an extra A on top. And then what's happening is we have this arpeggiator doing 148. So it's basically like these really fast triplets going up and then back down. And all it is just a square wave with this really short envelope with a little bit of attack. If you don't have that, it's like too clicky. So that just makes it kind of nice and smooth. We have a little bit of reverb. It's being sidechain and then a high pass, right? And then for this, so we're going, it's just hitting on that A, the root note, and we're doing 5th, 7th. And you can see that 7th. It's really close to the A, so it makes it resolve really nicely. For the sound on this one, it's 2 layers. It's this live brass stab, right? Like a sample. And then this wavetable patch with a saw wave that's then just got this kind of like amp envelope on it that's really similar to the brass stab. And it just kind of fills that out a bit. That's going through a bit of reverb, and then this overdrive. Here's without that. And with it, you can hear that's really crucial for getting that texture. It's only at 44% though. We have this being sidechain, and then we have a high pass filter. Then we have these 2 vocal chops. So these are really important as well to this style. Like, this is another one of those things that you could have that main groove, you could even have the little arp and the brass, but if you don't have some vocal chops contrasting that, it really is missing something. Right? So for this one, it's just this vocal. I've taken it and I've pitched it. What you can do is you can pitch one of these, right, until you find the right pitch. And if you double click on a Mac or right click on PC, you can hit copy value to siblings. So once you get the pitch of one of these right, you just make them all the same, right? You just chop up the vocal into a drum rack like this. Like, you take your vocal, slice to new MIDI track, transient, and then you get that, and you can do that method I just talked about. This one's going through a bit of overdrive, which really helps it just kind of come out and stand out a bit more in the mix. We have a bit of reverb. We have OTT being blended, so here's without that. With it, it gives it that last little push to really like kind of animate it, you know? We've got a bit of sidechain, and then a high pass is really important. If I turn that off, there's a lot of frequencies there that'll mess up the other stuff. So you want to make sure you high pass these. And then for the second one, it's really similar. It's like the same processing. Just taking these vocals and putting them really in that bright, like high mid-range to high end to just make it really, really work. And then the last thing down here is we have some effects. So the first one is, so I'll just show you this. So we got this little crash mixed with some white noise, so you kind of get a nice transition from that. The crash is just a little bit of reverb. The white noise is this operator patch. It's just white noise with a nice high pass on it to get rid of all the, you don't want all that in there, right? And then we're using a volume automation to make it disappear. We've got a long reverb on it, and then it's being sidechain. And then for this riser, what we're doing here, so what we're doing is we're using wavetable. It's a saw wave with a bunch of unison. It's a phase sync unison, so pretty simple patch. And then I have it set to monophonic, and we're doing the glide. And what it is you can see I have these 2 notes just right on top of each other, just going up an octave. But since the glide time is so long, it'll just build up and up and up. And that was kind of like the best way I could find to do that. Because you can set how long it is really easily by just making this. You know, if you want it to just be like that, or you can even make it longer. Then that's just got a bit of reverb, sidechain, high pass, which is pretty important with this, because otherwise you'll get a lot of that secret like low end that's going to mess up your mix. And then the last thing that's really important is this utility. You notice it's not just like a straight like 0 to 100. It's really like taking your time with this automation on the volume and like set it. Like at the beginning, you want it to kind of fade in a bit, like from lower, and then over here it's still fading, but it's like a very subtle fade. If you just have it go from 0 to 100, you're gonna be wondering why you don't really hear this in the mix. And yeah, so that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Make sure to go in the description and grab this template on my website again for just $5. It's an extremely accessible, high-quality template that I promise if you grab this today, you will not get as stuck with these tracks. It's really going to help you get where you're trying to get, and maybe you'll even get unselected. Grab the template, help support. It really helps me out, guys. I do not make a whole lot off of YouTube. You'd laugh if you saw the ad money, what I get every month. But with these sample packs and tutorials and these lessons and ghost productions and all that kind of stuff, I'm able to keep going, keep bringing you guys awesome tutorials like this and getting better every single day. Thank you so much for the support, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.